Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Far From Eden. This is the day that we do literary archaeology, and we are in it. We are in Grimm Brothers fairy tales. These are the fairy tales from 1812 and 1815. Well, that's when they were originally published. The Grimm Brothers went through Europe and collected these stories earlier than that. And earlier than that is when these stories came to be. Why? Why did they come to be? Well, it wasn't just entertainment. Just like the entertainment that you think you're seeing it, listening to it, music, movies, all of that, you think it's entertainment. You think that's what it's for. No, I don't believe that's ever been the purpose. It's instructional. It is socially engineering people to be the way the overlords, the state who works for the overlords, wants you to be. That's what's busting up families. It's creating the environment to break up families and never start families and send children to government indoctrination centers and make us think that that's always how it was. And that, I'm just not qualified to teach my children, even though I went through the same school system I'm sending them through. But I'm not qualified to teach them. Well, doesn't that tell you that school system is garbage? And maybe the purpose isn't to educate. Maybe it's, the school bell. It was originally to train good factory workers, good slaves. Anyways, these stories are instructional. They knew it back then. They were teaching their children using stories so that they could help teach their children and train them up in the way that they should go. Teach them the nature of men and women, because that's a phrase that YouTube doesn't like when I talk about the nature of the fairer gender. That's why I use other words to say female behavior. So, and I kind of like it. Kind of like trying to trick the robots, because it's not people listening. It's, their robot computer or whatever is listening and like searching for words to see if I'm, preaching misinformation and dangerous information. But don't worry. The call her daddy woman, she's fine. All that's fine. That's not detrimental at all. Let the degeneracy run wild. Well, we're fighting back one fairy tale at a time. This one's called The Wolf and the Seven Kids. No idea what this one's about. No idea. I'm so excited. We'll see. We don't know where we're going when we go in these fairy tales. A goat had 7 young kids, whom she loved very much and carefully protected from the wolf. One day, when she had to go and fetch some food, she called them all together and said, "Dear children, I must go out to find some food, so be on your guard against the wolf and don't let him inside. Pay close attention because he often disguises himself, but you can recognize him right away by his gruff voice and black paws. Protect yourselves. If he gets into the house, he'll eat you all up." Upon saying this, the goat went on her way, but it was not long before the wolf arrived at the door and called out, "Open up, dear children. I'm your mother." Oh, whoops, let me do the voice. "Open up, dear children. I'm your mother and have brought you some beautiful things." But the 7 kids said, "You're not our mother. She has a lovely, soft voice, and yours is gruff. You're the wolf, and we're not going to open the door." Is this like the 3 Little Pigs? Anyway, okay. The wolf went away to a shopkeeper and bought a big piece of chalk, which he ate, and it made his voice soft. Uh-oh. Yeah, they shouldn't have told him how they knew it wasn't her. They just should have not opened the door. Oops. Then he returned to the house door of the 7 kids and called out with a soft voice, "Dear children, let me in. I'm your mother, and I've brought something for each of you." But the wolf had put his paw on the windowsill. And when the children saw it, they said, "You're not our mother. She doesn't have black paw like yours. You're the wolf. We're not going to open the door for you. Don't tell him how you know." Oh. So the wolf ran to a baker and said, "Baker, put some dough on my paws for me." And after that was done, the wolf went into the miller and said, "Sprinkle some white flour on my paws." Oh no. This is not good, you guys. These fairy tales, they don't soften it. I'm scared. The miller said, "No. If you don't do it, I'll eat you up." So the miller had to do it. Now the wolf went once again to the house door of the 7 kids and said, "Dear children, I have to do the voice. Dear children, let me in. I'm your mother, and I brought something for each of you." The 7 kids wanted to see the paws first, and when they saw that they were snow white and heard the wolf speak so softly, they thought he was their mother and opened the door. Once the wolf entered, however, they recognized him quickly, hid themselves as best they could, they recognized him and quickly hid themselves as best they could. I get very excited and I try to read it too fast. Oh my gosh. The first kid slid under the table. The second hid in the bed. The third in the oven. The fourth in the kitchen. The fifth in the cupboard. The sixth under the large wash basin. And the seventh in the clock case. However, the wolf found them all and swallowed them, except for the youngest in the clock case, who remained alive. When the wolf had satisfied his craving, he went off. Shortly thereafter, the mother goat came home, and oh, what a terrible sight! The wolf had been there and had devoured her dear children. She thought they were all dead. But then the youngest jumped out of the clock case and told her how everything had happened. In the meantime, the wolf, who was stuffed, had gone to a green meadow where he had lain himself down in the sun and had fallen into a deep sleep. The old goat thought she still might be able to save her children. Therefore, she said to the youngest kid, "Take the scissors, needle, and thread and follow me." After she left the house, she found the wolf lying on the ground in the meadow and snoring. "There's that nasty wolf," she said, and inspected him from all sides. "There he is after eating my 6 children for supper. Give me the scissors. Oh, if only they're still alive inside him." Then she cut his belly open, and the 6 kids that had been swallowed whole by the gluttonous wolf jumped out and were unscathed. Immediately, she ordered them to gather large and heavy stones and to bring them to her. Then she filled his stomach with them, and the kids sewed him up again and hid behind a hedge. When the wolf had finished sleeping, he felt that his stomach was very heavy and said, "It's rumbling and tumbling in my belly. It's rumbling and rumbling and tumbling in my belly, and I've only eaten 6 kids." You two will love this video. So funny. He thought he had better have a drink of fresh water to help himself, and he looked for a well. But when he leaned over, he couldn't stand straight because of the stones and fell into the water. When the 7 kids saw this, They came running and danced joyfully around the well. Well, heck. Well, the mom saved them, but they clearly didn't listen. And they should never have told the wolf how they knew. Okay, you guys, okay. Day before yesterday, when I was on Joker's channel and I was interviewed, I said that I think that I have a borderline personality disorder light. And you're probably like, well, why are you talking about that right now? Because the boundaries thing. When the mother said, don't let the wolf in. If you don't let the wolf in, you can't let the wolf in. Just don't let him in the house. So they needed a better system, and they needed to not tell the wolf how they knew. When they heard the gruff voice, be like, nope, just don't open the door. Don't even tell him you're home. You don't have to. Let him be like, hey, you guys, it's your mom. Just don't answer the door. He's not going to figure it out. But they didn't understand the boundary. They heard their mom say, don't let him in. This is how you'll know him. They were not wise enough to understand what the boundary was. The boundary was, don't let him in. And they thought, okay, got it. And this is how I have been. Sorry, Lola's struggling with her. She still has her cold. I mentioned it on yesterday's video. She's still struggling a little bit, but she's okay. I got it taken care of, handled. We're on the mend. Anyway, don't forget to hit like. I forgot earlier in the video. I get so excited to read these fairy tales. Anyway, so boundaries are difficult for people with BPD. And it can be as simple as when someone knocks on the door, you don't let them in. And I had this experience, and I was like, okay, if it's a stranger, you don't open the door. You don't let them in, is what I was told. Like, be careful. You don't know. Like, don't let them in. So I looked out the peephole, and it was a bunch of children. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Later, the person who was telling me, don't do that, don't open the door, don't let people in, they said, I know, they were babies and they needed help. And I was like, yes, that's how I thought. Because guess what? When I opened the door, I was like, hi, can I help you? Thinking, these are children, Oh. They were like, yeah, we're looking to get cash to do some jobs. And I was like, aw. I was still like, oh, that's so sweet. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any cash. Do you have a credit card? I was like, what world is this? I was like, no. And then I was like, you probably shouldn't be knocking on doors around here. There's older people, there's sick people. It's probably not the best thing. Anyway, and I told the person, they were like, and they're protective of me. And like, I know they were babies and they need help, but you know what? Those babies aren't babies anymore. And when I said, don't open the door for people you don't know, it meant don't open the door. Don't let people in. And I was like, oh, got it? Like, that's a boundary I didn't understand. Boundaries are hard for me. And it doesn't play out in a lot of the ways that it would for a borderline personality person, usually, because they are usually hypersexual and all the rest of it. And so those boundaries are not set. They don't have boundaries, and structure is difficult. But as I've said before, the British fathers put in the structure. And I saw what some of my mothers, like, how emotional she was and how reactive she was. And thankfully I was like, I don't want to be that. But I have made decisions in my life that were kind of reactive. Like, my mom passes away, I move across the country. And in my brain, that seemed like the only option, but it wasn't. And I've done that a couple of times. So that's just that. These little kids, literally kids, they needed to be told, don't speak to the person, don't let them know that this is how you know, don't tell them I said that, etc. Sorry, I keep looking to see if Lola's going to jump up on the couch. And they just didn't have that. And I think that a lot of times the nature of the female gender is a little bit that way anyway, even without BPD or BPD diagnosis. When you compare it to men, the principle behind the rule sometimes gets lost on us. Like the way we vote, for example. We vote, we think we're compassionate. We think we're going to be compassionate, but we end up being terribly uncompassionate. And here's what I mean by that. Okay, we're gonna want everyone to have the opportunity to have a better life. So we're gonna welcome all these people from, third world countries, and we don't know who they are, and we don't know, if they're criminals, we don't know, but we're gonna just say, but they're people that are looking for a better life, and they should have that, and blah, blah, blah. Because we have compassion for people. But what they're not realizing is they don't have compassion for the people that live here. It's the life raft analogy. You have compassion for the people who are drowning and are not in a lifeboat. But you're in a lifeboat that can maximum hold 8 people. More than 8 people, it will sink. Okay? You got people who are drowning and screaming, and that's terrible. So is it compassionate to let a 9th person climb on the boat? No. But in our minds, we can't get past, but they're screaming and they need help, and we're in here and they have a right to a life raft, so they should be in here too. Forgetting the fact that life isn't fair, that life is very, very not fair, and some people drown, and some people are on the lifeboat. And that's just how it is. And you can't, not everybody can fit on the lifeboat. And women can't accept that. And they go like this, and they say, it's not just women. I mean, there are, simps for Kamala. Anyway, there are people that are like, they should all be on the lifeboat, but they should be. Okay, but they can't, because there's only so many resources, and there's only so much weight the lifeboat can take. So if the 9th person climbs on, you're not saving the 9th person. The 9th person is still going to perish, and so are the other 8 people on the lifeboat. Now, what if those 8 people is, your family, your spouse, your children, and your parents? And now you're on the lifeboat, and these are strangers in the water. Your compassion needs to go first to your family. And then, if there's extra, to your community, and Your compassion should not be a detriment to your family. And these are boundaries that, children struggle with and have to learn, and women struggle with. Now, what if the wolf was outside and he's like, it's really, really cold out here and I'm going to freeze to death? Then are you going to let him inside the house? I mean, there's a lot of people in the West who have and do and are. And they need to know, this is a wolf. If he gets inside, he will eat you up. This is what he sounds like. This is what he looks like. Do not let him inside, because this is what will happen. So they needed to take it a little more seriously than, oh, well, he sounds like this. He's going to say the right things, and he's going to sound the right way. He's even going to look the right way for a time. until he doesn't. And then the wolf's inside. And this is what happens. And guess what? You usually can't just go and undo what you've done. And if I was telling this story to children, I would say, I'm really glad that in this story, she's able to get her kids back. But do you think that that's how it would be? No. So what did we learn? You can't let the wolf into the house. You can't, because he's going to eat you up. He's not your family. He's not a goat. They were goats. They were a family of goats. But maybe if it was a goat outside and maybe they could let the goat in. But wolves and goats don't get along. And the mother knew this. And a goat situation is very much, it's more like the way horses are, where they're prey animals and their way is to run. The stallion can stay back. That's the male horse, can stay back and fight whatever the predator is, but he's only going to delay it so that the young ones and the females can get, a head start. So I would imagine if we have wild goats, I guess it's probably similar, because they're prey animal. They're prey, and they're going to try to run or hide or climb up on a mountain to where they can't. That's what they're going to do. So there isn't going to be like some kind of alpha that's going to fight them off. So they have to be smarter and quicker and things like that to get away. And the mom tried. And obviously goats don't live in a house, and goats don't go and fetch food. They would be grazing. But it's a fairy tale. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. If you were teaching this story to your children and you lived in Europe in the 1700s, let's say, imagine that's when they were telling this story. I think the story would be, look, it's a wolf, and wolves are dangerous to goats. We're not saying all wolves are bad. We're not saying that. You can say that if you want to, but that's not even what it's saying. It's again, wolves belong with wolves and goats belong with goats, and goats need to keep the wolves out if they want to live, if they want to still be goats and live how goats live. Because the wolves are going to seem nice until they're not. And I think that there are a lot of wolves now in Europe. There are a lot of wolves in England. There are a lot of wolves in the United States. Lake and Riley succumbed to a wolf. And the wolves were able to come in because they said, oh, but I'm just looking for a better life. See? I'm just like you. I'm just looking for a better life. I'm struggling. I come from a difficult country, and I just want to work hard. And then they got in the house. And now Lake and Riley's parents don't have her anymore. And there are a lot of other names that I could say if I knew all the names. There's a lot of victims of the wolves. But as you know, and I'm sure you're thinking right now, but those same victim types are generally also the ones that don't understand that it's a wolf. And even though it's disguising its voice like this, it's not friendly. It's not there to make your country better or stronger or to work hard just for themselves. No, the wolf is there to get what the wolf wants. And because these people, mostly women, we know the Democrat Party is lifted up by a lot of women. That's who makes the Democrats win. If you look over the course of, the last 100 years-ish since women have been voting, that's when we have the rise of liberalism, the rise of all this stuff. And if it were just men voting, we would have conserved our culture. We would have conserved our ways. We would have said, no, 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 no. This life raft only holds so many people. We can't, we can't let wolves into the house. We don't have enough resources for all of this. We don't have it. So, all right, the next one is so short, you guys won't believe it. So we're just going to have a bonus. We've been having bonus fairy tales. The Nightingale and the Blindworm. Oh, well, they don't sound like they'll be friends. Once upon a time, there lived a nightingale and a blindworm, each with one eye. For a long time, they lived together peacefully and harmoniously in a house. Oh my gosh, do we have a theme? Is this a theme? All right, so they only had one eye and they were living peacefully and harmoniously in a house. However, one day, the nightingale was invited to a wedding, and she said to the blindworm, "I've been invited to a wedding, and I don't particularly want to go with one eye. Would you be so kind as to lend me yours? I'll bring it back to you tomorrow." Ew. The blindworm gave her the eye out of the kindness of her heart. But when the nightingale came home the following day, she liked having two eyes in her head and being able to see on both sides, so she refused to return the borrowed eye to the blindworm. Then the blindworm swore that she would avenge herself on the nightingale's children and the children of her children. "Well," replied the nightingale, "see if you can find me. I'll build my nest in the linden so high, so high, so high, you'll never be able to find it, no matter how hard you try." Ever since that time, all the nightingales have had two eyes, and all the blindworms none. But whenever the nightingale builds her nest, a blindworm lives beneath it in the bushes and constantly tries to crawl up the tree, pierce the eggs of her enemy, and drink them up. Do blindworms actually? I'm going to have to research that. Do blindworms? Is this generational sin? Rojas, tell us. If you're in the chat, tell us. Is this generational sin? I say Rojas because he's usually like right there with the scriptures. I know a lot of you guys can do, like, the blindworm stole the eye, lied and stole. And the blindworm climbs up the tree, gets into the nest, and destroys the eggs, which are, her babies, like growing inside. What? Is that her sin? That she did? And it's following all the nightingales? All the blindworms? Makes sense. That's why they're blindworms. I'm going to have to research the blindworms and the nightingales now. Wow, you guys, I think it's generational sin. And I've wondered if I believe in that. But honestly, when you can kind of see it now, when you see the way you look at feminism and the way women have behaved and the effect that has had on their children and then on their children's children and each generation, we've seen, look at the differences in the generations when you go like the generation for the boomers and then the boomers and then Gen X and then millennials and then Gen Z and then Gen Alpha is like the kids now, the little kids. You see less and less and less morality, and you see more and more and more strife. You see more struggles, you see more hardship, and it isn't like in lack. We are very lucky here in the West. Even poor people are rich, comparatively. So, but because of our sin, the divorce, the promiscuity, the abortions, all of these things, look how unhappy we are. Look how miserable and unfulfilled we are. And it started, the sin started in the garden and has grown over the years. Then, Rome would fall. And when did it fall? When there was a whole lot of sinning going on. And it's almost like it leads to ruin. Generation after generation after generation. Nightingales, huh? Wow. Love these fairy tales. I love them. I see why they kept them secret, and why it's so hard to find the originals. And that's why I'm so glad I have it here, because they're going to change them on the internet, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to find the original ones, not going to be able to tell, and you don't know if what they've changed and what they've scrubbed from the internet. Trust me, the overlords can scrub and change things on the internet, and I think that's a big reason they wanted to move us all to digital stuff. Everything to digital, and no learning cursive in schools. Don't worry, we'll tell you what the Declaration of Independence says. Don't worry, we'll tell you what the Constitution says, and we'll tell you what it means, and we'll tell you how to feel about it. Don't read those old fairy tales. Those are misogynistic and backwards. People were so stupid back then. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. These are the Dark Ages. We are living in the Dark Ages. I don't think the Enlightenment was enlightening at all. I think that was them going, all right, we're going to turn the lights off now. Anyways, thanks for joining me on Fairy Tale Sunday. Always illuminating. I am proud of myself that I have the restraint not to read ahead, because it's very tempting, but I enjoy reading them with you guys. Now, the next ones are all kind of short. Let's see. The Stolen Pennies, The Hand with the Knife, The 12 Brothers. The 12 Brothers is longer. So next week, it looks like we'll have 3. The Stolen Pennies, The Hand with the Knife, and The 12 Brothers, in that order. So we'll have a short one, and then the longer one. Oh my gosh, I'm already excited. I'm already excited about next Sunday. So, and you guys are right. Your comments on Better Bachelors, the video that I did with him, you're right. If I was a grifter, I wouldn't be reading fairy tales on Sunday. I would be doing content that is like definitely gonna get the likes. I would put ridiculous TikTokers all the time and just complain about women and and that's not what I'm doing. It's not what I'm here to do. And I'm so grateful for you guys that get it, and that you're here. And those of you who just found me, I'm grateful for you guys, and I'm glad you're here. And I'm grateful to those of you who remember when I was feminism on trial and was just barely anything. Shout out to Dr. Ginger Hamster. He's a YouTube creator, and he talks a lot about men's rights and men's issues and different things. And he was one of the first that believed in me, and he had me on his channel in the very beginning, and I'm just really grateful to him for that. So because this message is important to me, it's personal, and it's important to me, and I want to do it. I want to share on YouTube and Rumble and locals. I know I still have to put content on there, but soon, very, very soon. And I'll let you guys know on YouTube. I'll put a community note when it's there, and you guys can check it out, because I'm excited about that too. I need the energy. I need to muster up all the energy just to sit up straight and do all this. But anyway, I digress. Thank you guys for being with me on this Sunday. I hope that it's been a restful and restorative day for you. I know that's difficult in today's environment. Hopefully, you've protected your peace. You have fed your souls. I love you guys. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.